The Kansas Territory was born in 1854, stretching from the Missouri border to the Rocky Mountains, and Episcopalians were among the early pioneers. Most of the priests were sent by the Missionary Association for the West, a group from Philadelphia. Their goal was simple, that Kansas would be forever free and the church forever low. One of those pioneers, Charles Calloway, established a school for girls, first in Tecumseh and later in Topeka, lured by 20 acres that would eventually become Bethany Place and the center of diocesan life. By the summer of 1859, clergymen in the territory asked Bishop Jackson Kemper to call a convention. 7 priests and 11 laymen gathered in St. Paul's Church in Wyandotte, and on August 12, 1859, they created the Diocese of Kansas. By the next spring, another convention elected a bishop, the Reverend Heman Dyer of New York. He turned them down. But who could blame him? With so few Episcopalians, the diocese's survival wasn't certain, and the territory had become bleeding Kansas, the epicenter in the fight over slavery. Bishop Henry Lee of Iowa agreed to provide whatever episcopal oversight he could, making visits as often as his schedule and health allowed. In September 1864, 5 years after the diocese was founded, the Reverend Thomas Vail of Iowa was elected the first bishop. When he got here, there was no money for a salary. He had to serve as rector of the church in Atchison to earn a wage. Looking back on those early days, he said,
"We were a diocese only technically and in name, poor as any jurisdiction around us."
Bishop Vail started with 10 congregations. 25 years later, the Diocese of Kansas had grown to 83 congregations with more than 3,000 communicants. And the fortunes of the diocese often rose and fell with the economy. In 1874, when German and Russian immigrants brought turkey red wheat to Kansas, farming boomed, parishes flourished. When crops failed because of drought and infestations of grasshoppers, membership withered, along with church coffers. Bishop Vail worked to expand the small girls' school that Reverend Calloway had started. Now called the College of the Sisters of Bethany, it tried to be a fashionable boarding school that would appeal to wealthy girls from the East. It rarely succeeded. Money was scarce. He also discovered that clergy who liked creature comforts didn't last for more than a year or so on the prairie, so he started the Kansas Theological School to train priests for mission work here. In 1884, Bishop Vail and his wife Ellie used their own money to open Christ Hospital in Topeka. It treated patients whether they could pay or not. Money was scarce there, too. Bishop Vail was in Pennsylvania raising money for these causes when he died in October 1889. Bishop Elijah Thomas helped start St. John's Military School in Salina, and he started to educate even more clergy at the theological school. A period of good fortune crashed in a nationwide economic panic in 1893, but with hard work, Bishop Thomas was able to save church properties from foreclosure. After just 5.5 years as bishop, he died of an apparent heart attack in March 1895. The dean of Grace Cathedral, Frank Millspaugh, became the 3rd bishop, the first Kansas bishop consecrated on Kansas soil. And Episcopalians were getting busy, building 36 new church buildings and 21 rectories. But with more than 100 churches now spread across the state, the General Convention of 1901 agreed to split the diocese in 2, creating the Missionary District of Salina out west. It's now known as the Diocese of Western Kansas. But Bethany College remained a financial drain. The bishop kept the school afloat by raising money, he wrote,
"by the painful act of begging like a mendicant friar, from house to house in New York and Philadelphia."
Bishop Millspaugh never lived to see his dream of a new cathedral. His funeral in September 1916 was the first service in the yet unfinished building. Bishop James Wise took over on the eve of World War I. Between a failing economy and men at war, parishes floundered. When the war ended, some churches just dwindled away when people moved from small towns to bigger cities. After a short boom, the Kansas economy in the 1920s discovered what the rest of the nation would soon know: recession, then depression. Bishop Wise could not save Bethany College. It was closed in 1928, and some of its land was sold for the new Topeka High School. Some clergy weren't getting paid. In ill health, Bishop Wise died during a parish visitation in July 1939. Goodrich Fenner became bishop at the start of another world war. But existing churches started to flourish. He also saw the coming need for new churches in growing areas, and he created the Church Extension Fund. To this day, it supplies low-cost loans for church construction. After the war, new churches did start up, first in Johnson County, then in Topeka and Wichita. In 1955, the diocese recorded 1,000 confirmations. In 1949, Christ Hospital, deep in debt, was turned over to the city of Topeka. It was merged with another hospital, and in honor of its founder was renamed Stormont Vale. Bishop Fenner retired in 1959 on the diocese's 100th anniversary, the first Kansas bishop to retire and not die while in office. Under Bishop Edward Turner, churches continued their post-war surge in membership, so he worked to expand the church loan fund, and just in time, too, as 11 new churches were planted. Times were changing, too. He encouraged a switch from morning prayer to the Eucharist as the norm for parish worship, and Kansans were among the first women allowed as deputies to General Convention in 1970. In November 1975, Grace Cathedral was gutted by arson. With the help of people across the diocese, it was rebuilt in less than 3 years. Bishop Turner retired on his 25th anniversary as bishop. Richard Grine, rector of St. Michael and All Angels in Mission, in 1981 became the first Kansas priest in almost a century to lead the diocese. He established a strong diaconate and ordained the first woman in Kansas history. He encouraged a number of parishes to move or merge to enhance their mission and evangelism. He led the successful Venture in Mission campaign in 1982, raising more than $1 million. That helped start Venture House in Wichita, now Episcopal Social Services. In 1988, Bishop Grine was elected Bishop of New York, where he served until he retired in 2001. The diocese was without a bishop for more than a year when William Smalley was elected in 1989. He helped create the Kansas School of Ministry to train local priests and deacons, much like Bishop Vale's old theological school. But KSM was open to lay people too and educated many parish leaders. Bishop Smalley guided a major revision in the governing bodies of the diocese, with the trustees, diocesan council, and standing committee merged into today's Council of Trustees. Bishop Smalley retired at the end of 2003. Dean Wolfe took office in January 2004. He launched a plan to establish an Episcopal presence on college campuses across the diocese. There are 14 so far. He has worked to start a new congregation in Johnson County and to energize existing churches. New efforts in youth ministry and stewardship already are reaping benefits. So, what is a diocese? Bishop Fenner called it
a group of churches, large and small, rich and poor, banded together to help each other.
Today, we are 45 congregations in 37 cities. Our churches have survived disasters, natural and man-made. We are 97 priests and 40 deacons and more than 11,000 baptized lay people. On the day before he was consecrated, Bishop Wolfe said this:
"We are the sons and daughters of the sons and daughters of pioneers.
We are the inheritors of a legacy of early pioneers who suffered hardships but kept this diocese afloat, of those who served during times of war and peace, of destitution and prosperity, of bishops who led during tumultuous time, changing time, our time. We are 150 years strong. We are 150 years wise. We are 150 years faithful. We are the Episcopal Diocese of Kansas."